Welcome to this Bitcoin price update for April of 2025. Please remember this is for entertainment purposes only. And the first thing to say about Bitcoin is that it's remarkable how, if you go through the previous price history, exactly every 16 quarters, we've got a cycle high. Now, obviously, the chances of that happening again, you'd think were very small, but it makes for a good reference point. And certainly a lot of the people obsessed with Bitcoin are kind of expecting the same thing to happen again. And they expect the price to always go up. So we've had these series of previous bubbles in the Bitcoin price, and each has coincided with a rush of money coming in. So before it was the availability of exchanges, then in 2020 it was the appearance of more institutional buying and companies, and Bitcoin becoming more mainstream, coinciding with lots of money being printed by the governments. This most recent one seems to be most associated with ETFs buying, which I'll go into a bit more detail shortly. That seems to be the latest demand. Just like with every time before, I'm expecting the bubble to burst again, ending this so-called cycle. And also, like I explained in previous videos, I'm using a 52-week moving average on a weekly timescale as my kind of guide as to whether or not we're still in this bull market or not. But of course, that is all assuming that we haven't topped already. Here I've lined up those previous cycles, which have produced a high exactly every 16 quarters, which is fairly remarkable. And here's the latest one lining up. And actually, from this view, we see that actually both of these scenarios could come into play. So we could have a classic scenario which matched the previous couple of cycles. We're still congruent with this, and that would mean we would see a serious increase in price in the last quarter of this year. But also last year's kind of rather pathetic double peak. Remember, last year was only a 4x compared with the 17x we'd had previous. This is a multiple of the previous high I'm talking about. We had like a kind of pathetic peak and then like a double top. So we're actually could also get kind of an even more pathetic version of that this year, which you'd kind of explain by there just being by us kind of having run out of great new multipliers of new money coming in to buy Bitcoin. You know, after you've got ETFs and then countries buying, you kind of run out of new money to come in and buy. So really, where we are now, either of these two extreme scenarios could play out. So here we've got the age of the Bitcoin that have been mined. And of course, you know, there's a lot of Bitcoin which was early miners or was presumed loss or has been held for 2 cycles now. So we consider that to be fairly safe Bitcoin, not unlikely to be spent. 3.9 million have been held for at least 1 cycle. The majority here is liquid Bitcoin that's transacted since the previous cycle. And I'm quite surprised that actually only 11% of the Bitcoin, which is the pink here, the flesh color here, is actually retail held on exchanges. I'd kind of expected more to be on exchanges. And ETFs, you can see, is 7%. So comparing with previously, this is where I'm arguing that it's perhaps ETF buying that's been the new money coming in this time. And then we have countries that own Bitcoin in purple, companies X MicroStrategy in orange, and MicroStrategy in yellow. So we see that really the ETFs are kind of the bulk of the new money. And it's very surprising actually how much of the liquid Bitcoin isn't held on exchanges but is kind of privately owned. Yeah, so who is it that owns all of this Bitcoin? And so I've matched these up now the last 3 months, and we see there's actually no change on the resolution that I'm using. Here I've got the price Bitcoin versus ETF flows, and indeed we see a correlation there where there's ETF inflows when the price goes up and outflows when the price crashed in early March. We see the same here again using these graphics. There's been a bit of an outflow of ETF holdings of Bitcoin in the last month. I get actual different numbers according to which source, so bear that in mind. And I've got that represented here where we see in red, according to treasuries.bitbo anyway, a definite small drop in the amount of ETFs holding Bitcoin. Countries are the same. Companies have actually gone up by 3%, of which MicroStrategy was a lot of that. The total Bitcoin, though, overall is up slightly as held by these entities. So we've in fact seen a transfer from the ETFs to public and private companies. So on this resolution of to 0.1 decimal place, there's not actually a change over the last 3 months. And we see that here the ETFs are down by 1%, but public and private companies are up 3%. So here I've lined these up for each month, and we see, yes, ETFs down 1%, but actually public companies holdings up 6%. And the BTC held on exchanges has kind of stayed about the same. And what we might see is basically people holding on exchanges less and just investing in ETFs instead, perhaps. I've been looking at MicroStrategy and they're still raising Bitcoin. They rose 1.3 billion in March, this time using equity raisers. But if you go and looking at the detail, with their capital raisers, MicroStrategy are getting more onerous terms than before. But they are, however, regardless, still being able to raise money to buy Bitcoin. In terms of the country's holdings of Bitcoin, it stayed the same. In terms of public companies, we see a bit of action here. Interesting to see Marathon Digital Holdings there increasing their amount by 15%. And apparently a news story's just come out, and assuming it isn't a April Fool's from yesterday, there has been reports coming out that GameStop have raised 1.5 billion. Regardless of if that was an April Fool's or not, though, there's definitely been a lot of public companies buying Bitcoin. And even Tether, which is a private company, they actually increased their stake by 20%. These are my KPI I've been using to track the Bitcoin price with. In terms of the cycle, still trace the previous cycles. And like I say, we don't know if we're in for a traditional cycle like this or even more pathetic version of the last cycle we got. Either way, I do still think that we're following the previous cycle patterns. And I'm using this moving average here, the final decision maker, whether we're totally out of this as a bull market or not. So I've got the green light on still for the cycle. In terms of the ETFs, that's in yellow now because we had actual outflows slightly. I've got a green light for MicroStrategy because they're still buying. And then I've got these too good to be true emitters. And obviously with the price of Bitcoin going down since last month, there's kind of no activity with these at all. So I think this is the best slide to focus on this month. Are we going to have a traditional fourth quarter moonshot for this so-called cycle? Or are we just running out of new money we can get for buying Bitcoin? Once you've got President Trump saying buy Bitcoin, is that the limit perhaps? In which case we could be getting like a more pathetic version of the previous cycle. Really can't be a fun time for people who've got significant amounts of money invested in Bitcoin. We've got like an excruciating few more months to come before the future of the Bitcoin price is finally revealed. So I hope you found this video useful and see you at the next one. I do videos like this one just for fun as a hobby. It's for entertainment purposes only. Always consult a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decision.